Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Just by way of short introduction, because we are now in a hybrid meeting, I'll just remind members, particularly those who are accessing remotely, the rules that we have had in play throughout the remote access meetings, and that is that we will ask you to mute yourself throughout the meeting except when you are asked to speak, and then when you are asked to speak you will unmute yourself and then say what it is that you need to say and then go back on mute after that. If you have a question, please press the virtual hand on the screen and the chair will invite you to speak one person at a time. Because of the way that the remote system interacts with the system in the chambers, we will do our very best to make sure that you are called in order, but that's going to be dependent on us being able to see the virtual hand on screen. Any elected member joining remotely must be visible on the screen, and if you are not visible on the screen, then you will not be able to remain in the meeting. If you have to leave the meeting at any point, you'll need to indicate to us that you have done so, and you will not be able to vote on any item where you have not heard the whole of the debate. For those of you in the chamber, just to remind you, we are all getting used to this system. When you do wish to speak, you press the button which says speak, and that will come on as a green light for you, and then when the mayor calls you to speak, it will go red. So please don't try and speak until it has gone red, and then once you have spoken, if you press it again, it will go off. Sometimes there's a slight delay, but it will then go off. And then the other thing is that when you come to vote, I will remind you which button is for which vote, as in which one is for, which one is against, and which one is for an abstention. We can do all the voting at the same time, so we don't need to go through them one at a time as we had been doing. But whatever vote you record is the vote that will be recorded against your name. So you do need to be really careful that you press the right button, because you can't have a second chance at that. So, Mr. Mayor, that's all I was going to say by way of preliminary. Can we ask that all officers and guests who are not actively part of this meeting turn off their cameras, and then we will have only the elected members on screen. And can I ask Democratic Services? Well, Democratic Services have started the recording, and therefore I'll hand over to you, Mr. Mayor, to start the meeting.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. I would just like to remind everyone a fair and robust debate is welcome to full council meetings, but I would ask that members show respect and consideration for others at all times. Okay, Prynawn da, croeso I cyfarfod, diolch I chi gyd am dod. Good afternoon, welcome to the Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Full Council meeting of Wednesday, 5th of October 2022. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and may be broadcast via the authority's internet site. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the authority. Agenda item number 1, apologies for absence. Democratic Services, have we apologies for absence?
There. I can just tell you, Mr. Mayor, that we have apologies from Councillor Gareth Richards and Councillor Kevin Gibbs.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. I've had a message from Councillor Jeremy Davis. He may not be able to come in. He's having IT issues as well. Okay. Agenda item number 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal or prejudicial interest in respect of matters contained in this agenda in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government and Finance Act 1992 relating to Council Tax, the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution and a Members' Code of Conduct. Are there any members who wish to make a declaration of interest? No, thank you very much. Agenda item number 3, to approve as accurate the minutes of the following meetings. Full Council of 7th of September 2022, Cabinet 7th of September 2022, Planning, Regulatory and Licensing 24th of August 2022, Licensing Committee 1st of September 2022, Licensing Committee 14th of September 2022, Rights of Way 8th of September 2022, Standards 2nd of September 2022, and scrutiny, regeneration and public protection, the 6th of September 2022. I think the council leader, Geraint Thomas, will be moving this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to move the minutes.
Thank you, councillor. Do we have a seconder for this agenda item? Thank you, councillor Barry. Can we put this to the vote then, monitoring officer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh,
Yeah, do you know what the point of order is?
yes, Mr. Mayor, if the member wants to ask a question about that, he can do.
You can talk. When it's red, Jamie. Yeah. No, when it's red, you can talk. So if you press the button again, I think.
Matthew, this one won't go off.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in regards to the Constitution in section 40118, obviously the mayor or chairperson can sign the minutes of the meetings at the next suitable meeting. Is the wording exactly? Now, as a new councillor, I'm quite new when getting to grips with the Constitution myself. But in accordance with the Constitution, I just said the next suitable meeting, I don't really see as appropriate for use at the full council meeting. As an example, minutes of cabinet meeting on the 7th of September, there's only 6 of 30 members in the room that can actually presently give the validity for those meetings. Not all councillors can give approval for different things. So we've also got committee members, lay members, co-opted members for other committees as well that will be able to give validity for some of these records. And now, all I wanted to say is, can we recommend that we actually comply with the Constitution for the best suitable meeting to be the next meeting for those committees, and that we go in line with best practice for governance and audit purposes, and we move minutes of meetings to be presented at the appropriate committees, so they're a true record of business for those meetings? Because otherwise, if we're voting on things as a block for every minute, I'm giving approval for meetings, and other councillors are for things that they're not present for. So I just don't think it lines up with what the Constitution is asking. So I just a query to put forward as a point of order.
Thank you for that, councillor. If you want to change the process, you'll need to put forward a formal request for that. The reason why these minutes are approved at this meeting is because that is the way they get entered into the council's formal record. So it's not an approval on the basis of people who were present at the meeting approving the minutes. It's a way of ensuring that they are entered into the council's formal record, so that we then comply with the Constitution, which allows us to record actions and decisions made at formal meetings within the council agenda. So that's the reason why it's done like that. If you want to have a discussion with me separately about that, we can certainly do that, but that's not something that we can change during this meeting today.
Happy with that, councillor? Thank you. Okay.
So we will have to do this still in a slightly awkward way, because as Councillor Mitten is attending remotely, I am still going to have to ask her separately. Councillor Barry? Oh my God. There. No.
Great. We're about to go to workshops, I believe, for the new constitution, and I think that there's a point at least has been made here that there's confusion in terms of the constitution and that voting. So there's an opportunity now for us to write that within the new constitution. So when we go to the workshops, that's an absolutely valid point to bring up then, Jim. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So if I can ask everybody to vote, but before I do that, I'm going to remind you, if you vote by pressing the left-hand button on your console, that is in favour. The one in the middle is to abstain, and the one on the right is to vote against.
Jamie raised this point of order, but I don't think the motion was actually moved and seconded. Well, it wasn't proposed and seconded.
If everybody did hear that, so left for in favour, middle for abstain, right for against, and I'll come to Councillor Mitten in just a moment. So if everybody else could please vote now. And Councillor Mitten, I'm going to ask you, first of all, if you wish to vote in favour, can you please raise your hand, and somebody will need to tell me if that happens.
Okay, so I'll do a virtual hand and my own hand. So yes.
Thank you, Councillor Mitten.
You're welcome.
And that's carried, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. Agenda item number 4, Early Years Partnership Plan 2022 to 2027. To consider a report of the Chief Officer of Social Services. The Cabinet Member for Social Services, Councillor Julia Jenkins, will be presenting and moving this report.
The Early Years Partnerships Plan 2022 to 2027. The report is to agree the Early Years Partnership Plan. The plan had been developed together with a local authority, Cwmtath Morgannwg University Health Board, Public Health Wales and voluntary sector childcare providers. Further to the summary, the range of partners that have been engaged in establishing this plan is extensive, as its impact on the range of services, particularly health and education services. The agenda for early years is critical to the future success of children as they transition into school and the progress on their learning journey. The consultation on the plan identified the key points set out in 3.4. I would like to draw your attention to the views of parents and healthcare in particular. The 5 key priorities which are outlined in 4.3, which will focus the work of the services in coming years. However, critical to the success of the early years agenda is the home environment and the relationship between parents and infants. The plan will continually be reviewed to ensure the focus of the service remains in line with needs. There are no financial implications with this report. The recommendations are 2.1, the early years partnership plan is approved, and 2.2, the provision to members of an annual report on progress against the priorities within the plan be approved. I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Jenkins. Do we have a seconder for this agenda item? Councillor Michelle Jones.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Any questions from members? No questions from members. Any comments from members? None indicating. Okay, can we put this to the vote then, please, Monitoring Officer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and we'll do the same thing again. Again, I'll remind you, left is in favour, middle is abstain, right is against. So please vote now. And Councillor Mitten, if you could show with your real and virtual hand, we can count that vote as well.
Left hand, I guess. So in favour. I hope that worked.
That does. Everybody appears to have abstained, which I'm sure is not what everybody intended. If everybody could just bear with us for a second, I will just wait until Democratic can tell us how we can do that. Can we just vote again? Can I ask you all to vote again? I'm so sorry. And that's carried. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. Agenda item number 5, regional 1,000 beds and step-down bed proposal. There's a minor amendment to this, so I'm going to hand over to the Monitoring Officer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is a minor amendment which is at page 70 under proposed regional actions, paragraph 4.4. The paragraph currently reads, further detail will be included in a regional plan which is currently being drawn up by health colleagues following a multi-agency meeting in the last 2 weeks. Once available, this can be shared with, currently says cabinet members, and it will be amended to read council and cabinet members. So that's the amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Monitoring Officer. Okay, the Cabinet Member for Social Services, Councillor Julia Jenkins, will be presenting and moving this report. Councillor Jenkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's the regional 1,000 beds and step-down bed proposal. This report relates to current pressures with social care and health services within Cwm Morgannwg region in relation to high expectations anticipated over the winter period. We are being asked to provide 188 beds of the overall 1,000 bed expectations. There are 2 potential options for the provision of step-down beds in Merthyr, the recommission of beds located in a separate wing at Tgurnes, also block booking of beds within an independent care home within the Merthyr area. The report was taken to Cabinet in September, which was agreed in principle. However, this report specifically considers the financial element. The expected financial commitment within additional resources, whilst we are supportive, we will be unable to meet the costs associated with it with our existing budget. The recommendations that 2.1, the plans are set out in the report for the step-down beds be approved, and 2.2, the funds of the financial costs associated with the plan are not approved. I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Jenkins. Do we have a seconder for this?
Yeah, can I second this report? And in seconding, I think it's useful to give a little perspective on the recommendations. This proposal could cost the authority as a minimum £404,000. 3 weeks ago, we took the decision to move some of our borrowing from short to longer term borrowing strategy. £30 million over 8, 9 and 10 years at around circa 4%. Subsequently, over that weekend, the interest rate from the Public Works Board jumped from 4.18% to 5.3%. This would have cost the authority circa £300,000. That £300,000 interest increase, but we still have an increase of £600,000 in committed borrowing costs and predictions in the current year. 400,000 within this proposal, wage increases in excess of 1.5 million, energy costs in excess of an additional 2 million. The economic forecast for public sector finances could not be bleaker. Inflation stands at 9.9%, a 40-year high. We have Goldman Sachs on the 30th of August predicting an inflation reaching 22% by 2023. Interest rates fluctuating both within our own borrowing mechanisms and, as I've outlined, and the Bank of England base rate currently standing at 2.25, and no doubt will be increasing in an attempt to control inflation. The next Bank of England interest rate decisions, 3rd of November, 15th of December. We have a budget, more than just the fiscal intervention, on the 23rd of November. Our own Welsh Government settlement between the 12th and 13th of December. To say they're turbulent times would be an understatement. With the political and economic turmoil that prevails at present, Mr. Mayor, there appears to be a perfect storm brewing for the public sector, and in particular all authorities in Wales, not least because of the £18 billion of savings UK-wide announced by the Chancellor a few days ago. Myself and the leader met with Councillor Dan Roberts and Councillor Jones, and Darren made a pertinent point in saying this could be the new norm. Who knows? You know, that's where we are that's where we find ourselves at the moment. Considering the fluidity of the current economic climate at the moment, we are talking of weekly and daily decisions on the most effective course. The recommendations appear to be a yes, no, but in context, as I've outlined, members will understand the coming months are going to be difficult, and we, along with every other authority in Wales, need both Westminster and Cardiff to step up financially to support our residents being talked about within this report. Westminster and the Tories have already stated their position. We now need clarity from the Labour government in Cardiff. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. We're going to move on to questions, and I've got Councillor Bill Smith is indicating.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, that's the phone. I do apologise. I'm going to put the amendment forward that we refer this back to the Social Services Scrutiny Committee because the comments that Councillor Andrew just made now on the costing and everything else, because RCT's on about pulling out of it. They say the costing is a bit too much, and we want to know because when we move these people from A to B and around, it's going to be a major problem. We had problems with T-Gurners a couple of years ago, problem with anti-bargo, so I want that all included, see what's happening, because at the end of the day, if we're going to go with this, and with the cost of living, and the budget line going with the new Conservative Party, and Prime Minister, we have major problems. So that's my I'm moving that, Chair.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Clive Jones, you're indicating? Or was that for questions on the last? Okay. Have we got a seconder for this amendment?
Just be clear, Clive, Councillor Clive Jones, you're not waiting to second the amendment. If there is no seconder for the amendment, then that amendment falls. No. So we will then have to proceed with questions in respect of the existing recommendations.
Okay, we're going to go back to questions on the original agenda item. Councillor Clive Jones.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I didn't want to miss my turn in the queue. I got a few questions, and if you bear with me, I need to read out paragraphs that are relevant to the first question I'm going to ask. On page 70, under 3.12, it states there, social care officers are meeting with health colleagues on a regular basis to discuss how working together can assist the winter pressures. There are plans in place to look at preventative work, for example, people having support within the community to prevent hospitalisation, and looking at capacity of domiciliary care to try and reduce waiting lists for packages of care. But if you look at paragraph 3.2 on page 68, that reads, due to the additional demands on health services, there have been increasing pressures on social care, especially community domiciliary care services, as significant numbers of staff have left employment and recruitment into these posts have been extremely difficult. So my question is, if we haven't got the staff and there are serious problems in recruiting and retaining staff, how is this going to work?
Angela Devane? Yeah.
I think it's, oh, sorry, Councillor, it's identified in one of the risks that we may not be able to actually recruit staff. And we've actually indicated on the risk register as part of our joint working arrangement, given the timescales, and we all appreciate at this time that it is real difficulty in recruiting into frontline social care staff posts within care homes and with domiciliary care. And we do recognise, and we have indicated that is a potential risk of it going forward, that we wouldn't be able to recruit staff into those posts.
Thank you for that. My other question is on 3.3, where you refer to the fact that at the time of writing this report, the numbers of people waiting for packages of care in the community have risen from 2 or 3 to a current waiting list of 30. That was as at the 26th of August. Now we virtually 6 weeks later. Are the figures still at 30, or is it less, or is it more?
Thanks. As of today, the current number of people who are waiting for domiciliary care is in the region of 25. It fluctuates on a daily basis. The numbers waiting in hospital have decreased. We've taken on an additional framework provider earlier in the year that has come to fruition only in the last couple of weeks, and that's a company called QK that we have commissioned previously, and they are now recruiting quite well in the area and have already started sort of I think last week they took 10 packages out of that list that's there. So, and it's anticipated they've got a number of staff that are in the pipeline and being recruited, and it's hoped that we will continue to reduce those numbers that are waiting for packages care. Thanks.
Thank you for that. My other question is on page 70 and 4.3. It says regional proposals discussed are and include the development of step-down beds from hospital for those who require additional support to enable them to return home. These in the main involve reconfiguration of vacant beds in local authority homes in each of the 3 local authorities and the provision of additional beds on the health board sites and additional capacity for early stroke rehabilitation beds and the block purchase of beds in an independent care home. Now, what is stated in this report, Mr. Mayor, is there is no finance forthcoming, both from the Welsh Government and it seems the Health Board, because I don't think the Health Board is awash with money and additional staff. So how can those particular points be implemented if we haven't got the finance and there's going to be extreme difficulty in recruiting staff, which I suggest may have to be done on a fairly quick basis?
Thank you, Councillor Jones. If you note, it says the regional proposals. These are some of the options that we were asked to develop by Welsh Government on the steer from the Minister to look at options to try and ease some of the pressures within the health and social care system. As part of that, we've put together some of those options of areas that we could work together to try and address it. At this point, they are proposals, they're not fully financed, and they are going through each of the different areas. So if you look at, we're bringing this to council for a decision. RCT was taking it to their council and the health board will be going through their governance arrangements. So at the point of this report being written, there were proposals that were being taken through the individual organisations' governance arrangements, but it was a clear steer as part of the feedback from Welsh Government is that there is no additional funding, which was not the original impression that we were made to believe. Thanks.
Thank you for all those answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Any other members with questions? Okay, nobody's indicating. Angela, thank you very much for answering those questions. Go on to comments from members. Any members with comments? Okay, Councillor Clive Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We support the recommendations under 2.1 and 2.2. It's all very well for discussions to take place, proposals to be made, but if the finance is not available, and the cabinet members indicated this evening how much is needed, and there are, I would say, dire issues for recruiting and retaining members, both in social care and, for that matter, in the health board, because I said earlier, they are not awash with staff. In fact, they are struggling in the National Health Service, not here, throughout the country because of the number of vacant posts. and those who are still suffering from COVID. So it's difficult to understand how this can be implemented, taking into account that we're only a matter of a few weeks away from winter pressures. And I would suggest, Mr. Mayor, that the winter pressures have already started. So it's a wonderful idea to have 1,000 step-down beds throughout the country. But unless you've got the finance, particularly, and you've got the staff there to do it, I can't see how this is going to be implemented as it should. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clive Jones. Councillor Clive Tully.
Just to give people an idea of the scale of the problem, today, I'm told, there are 105 people between Mountain Ash and Prince Charles Hospital that could be discharged if there was somewhere appropriate for them to go. And the hospital on Monday went into business continuity, and I think every elective operation on Monday was cancelled. I don't know about the rest of the week, but it's a dire situation where the hospital will never get rid of the waiting lists unless we can move people on from the acute hospital. But to say the figures today, there are 105 people that could be discharged if there's somewhere suitable for them to go. That's between Prince Charles and Mountain Ash. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Tully. Councillor Geraint Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And picking up on the pertinent points from Councillor Jones and Councillor Tovey there, we are in dire straits going into this winter. We can find the beds, we'll find the beds for them, but the cost of running it, I'm afraid we'll have to go to the NHS and to Welsh Government. But going back as well onto the point that Councillor Smith brought up earlier, I think you are right, Councillor Smith. I think scrutiny needs to have a good look at what's going on. And if you want to bring a report or ask for a report to be brought to the future scrutiny meetings on the step-down arrangements, I think you're well within your rights to do so. And please do as well, because I think it will be really good for the residents of Merthyr Tydfil to see the position that we're currently in. So yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Any other members with comments? Oh, I'm going to bring in Lisa Curtis-Jones.
Just to say that at the next scrutiny, there is a report going on discharges from hospital, so that's already on the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. There's nobody else indicating for comments, so okay. Can we put this to the vote then, please, Monitoring Officer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we will hopefully this time with some more success. And Councillor Mitten, if you can raise your left or right hand as we proceed with the vote, and just remind everybody left is for, abstain is in the middle, and against is on the right. If you could vote now, please.
Just confirming my vote, Monitoring Officer. Hopefully you've got that there.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and that's carried, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. Okay, agenda item number 6, the future development of community-focused schools within a cluster model across Merthyr Tydfil. To consider the report of the Chief Officer of Education. The Cabinet Member for Education, Councillor Michelle Jones, will be presenting and moving this report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Many of our schools are community schools as per their title. However, the current Education Minister has pledged to develop the community-focused schools agenda fully to ensure that schools and their immediate community work together to improve the outcomes and the aspirations for all our young people. This report outlines the strategic vision from the Education Minister and also links this work closely to the role schools play in challenging the impact of not only the pandemic, but also the ongoing poverty gap. The local authority has been fortunate enough to work with Cardiff Metropolitan University and with Welsh Government to develop this work initially across the North Cluster of our schools. But if we are successful in shared prosperity funding to deliver this across the county borough, the whole of the county borough. As part of the work in the North Cluster, the local authority will be working with a foundation of community engagement. This national organisation has developed a framework of expectations for how schools engage with the community, and officers will be working with community groups to see how the framework can be developed to identify how community groups can interact more directly with schools. The community-focused schools agenda also focuses on how schools and service areas, such as children's services and health, work closer together, and this is a key priority being targeted by the new post holders. Before I open this up for questions and comments, I would like to take members to the recommendations. That at 2.1, the 3-cluster approach, subject to funding from the Shared Prosperity Fund, as set out in section 5.0, be approved. And 2.2, the bringing back of a progress report to Council in 12 months be approved. And 2.3, identified named leads for service areas working within the cluster model to further develop integrated working practices around each cluster be approved. I so move, Mr. Mayor.
There are other recommendations just over the page, I think, Councillor.
And at 2.4, the holding of cluster development and visioning meetings involving partners across the North Cluster, with key partners identified for the future establishment of a steering group to support the development of the approach be approved. And 2.5, the replication of 2.4 across other clusters be approved. I so move now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Michelle Jones. Do we have a seconder for this agenda item? Councillor Geraint Thomas.
Very happy to second this report, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Do we have any questions from members? I've got Councillor Lee Davis.
I am colourblind, so you have to bear with me. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thank you for this report too. It's excellent, and it's something I'm really passionate about, as you know, and as Chair of Governors of GOIDRA, it's something I fully support. My one question is around if a head teacher in a governing body didn't want the community using the facilities, do we have any grounds to enforce them to do so?
Thank you, Councillor. As part of the work this year that we're actually undertaking, we're looking to develop, and I think I've spoken about this before, a memorandum of understanding with all governing bodies, that they will sign up to this, and it will be the governing body that signs up to it rather than the head teacher making the decision, because it's a governing body decision. Our schools are community assets, so it is working with the governors, and most of the chairs of governors and the vice chairs that I've spoken to are very passionate about this. If there are head teachers or governing bodies that are putting a barrier in our way, we will be working with those individually. But it is something that we are committed to, and certainly passionate as you are about driving this forward. So we will work with those that are putting barriers in our way.
Excellent, thanks, Sue. One last question. I can see on page 83 there's financial implications. Just around this, caretakers opening after school hours, will that be, those sort of costs, will that be covered under SPF?
That will be looked at under the memorandum of understanding and how we actually develop that moving forward. Within the report, it says about the 10 schools that have actually bid for capital funding as part of that. That is something that we look at with those schools and actually see how we can then feed that into the memorandum of understanding.
Great, thanks, Sue. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lee Davis. I've got Councillor Darren Roberts indicating.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I can refer members to page 83, and in particular 6.1 of the report. It makes reference to the recent grant from Welsh Government, and in particular the £30,000 for a community-focused schools manager. This role is crucial to deliver on the aspirations raised within this report. Do we think that that figure of £30,000 would be enough to attract the relevant person with the necessary skill set and acumen that this position requires?
If you look at 6.2, Councillor Roberts, schools in the North Cluster have contributed 5k to the Community Focused Schools Manager post. So that was all the schools in the North Cluster, including BCA, Blessed Carlo Acutus. So it wasn't just 30k, it was that additional, which also gave ownership to the schools. So it wasn't just us doing it to them, the schools had ownership. So they have agreed to that.
Yep. Thank you for clarifying too.
Thank you, Councillor Darren Roberts. Any other members with questions? Councillor Brent Carter.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I was putting my hand up and I was dreaming of old days. Sue, just a quick question. I didn't have any questions actually, but I just wanted to clarify it on this point. What Councillor Roberts is saying with the 30k plus the extra 5 says 35k. But that surely includes on costs and everything as well, doesn't it?
There's more than one school. So you're talking about Penetrae, Bishop. So it's all the schools that feed Penetrae plus Blessed Carlo Acutus have put 5k in.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brent Carter. Nobody else is indicating. So I'd just like to say thank you very much, Mr. Walker, for answering the questions. And we're going to go on to comments. Any comments from members? Oh, sorry, Councillor Mitten, you're online. I missed you. I do apologise. Was it a question you had?
No, it's observation, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Yeah, you could fire away.
Yeah, just to share with colleagues, obviously there are a number of my own LaySkip and learning scrutiny colleagues within the council chamber tonight. Unfortunately, I couldn't be with you. But just to reiterate that as a scrutiny, we have recently held a workshop on community focused schools, and we will be reporting back to our next scrutiny on the feedback and the evidence to date that we actually found together. We did a SWOT analysis on it. So it really is about everybody working together with Sue and the team and all of the schools and the governors as well. So this work is in progress and part of our forward work plan. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lisa Mitten. I've got Councillor Michelle Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As an advocate of community benefits, I would like to thank Sue and our team for the information presented. In Appendix 4, the Learning and LGES Scrutiny Workshop highlights the significant opportunities that community-focused schools aspires to pursue. I welcome the cluster approach and believe this further enhances and complements the sharing best practice and collaboration work that has been undertaken in other areas from schools and governing bodies, such as our Raising Aspirations, Raising Standards strategy and our Welsh Education strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Michelle Simmons. I've got Councillor Geraint Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this report is fantastic. You know, it's something that we've been shouting about for a long time, you know, as an administration, the last administration, 5 years. We need the schools open to the communities. We've got to, you know, realise that Merthyr Tydfil is not the best place financially in Wales or the UK. And we need to have fantastic facilities in environments where children and adults who perhaps can't get to read a car, you know, they use the leisure centre, they've got it on their doorstep. And I think opening the schools who will have these facilities is the way forward. Just look at the example of the John Selwood track at Avon Taff and what a community benefit that has been for the people in the middle of the valley, right? It's been absolutely fantastic and people travel to there as well. So I think by, you know, the swimming pool at Penetrae, you know, the new facilities at, is it BCP at BCP? BCA, that's going to be great. You know, and I just think it's only good for the children and for the families of Merthyr Tydfil. So yeah, thank you for bringing this, Sue.
Thank you, Councillor Geraint Thomas. I've got Councillor Jamie Scriven.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to add and thank Sue again for answering the questions and bringing the report in. And I echo everything that's been said by everyone so far, by Councillor Mitten and just now by Councillor Thomas as well. You've already mentioned the PYD swimming pool and how that was used and how we're moving toward this model now of schools being open, being used for community purpose. And just coming back to Councillor Davis's questions, just to confirm, as Lisa said, we did meet as a scrutiny and we are really critical of this approach. And like Sue said, we've talked about memorandums of understanding, but one of the things we're also really concerned about is that we're not just community focused schools, that we've got community focused teachers. So we're also trying to look at ways that we really got the staff on board as well, and this isn't just some sort of pledge or promise from schools, that we've really got staff who are committed on board with what we're trying to achieve. And to remember that this will also contribute to how schools have establishing the whole school approach frameworks and guidances that they've got in place. So there's a lot of different approaches to how we're coming at schools now and the requirements for them to do this. I just really welcome the report and all the questions that have been asked. And just thank you to Sue for everything you've done.
Thank you, Councillor Jamie Scriven. Councillor Gareth Lewis.
Mr. Mayor, in addition to the cross-chamber support for this report, I feel that us as councillors and as governors are in a unique position to drive this forward. And I certainly look forward to seeing the progress report in 12 months' time, and I genuinely believe it will be a positive outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gareth Lewis. Any other members with comments? There's none indicating, so I'm going to hand over to the monitoring officer to take it to the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just again, I'll remind you, left is in favour, abstain is in the middle, against is on the right, and Councillor Mitten will demonstrate by putting up her left hand if she's in favour or her right hand if she's opposed. So can you please vote now?
Left hand up. Thank you, monitoring officer. In favour.
Thank you, Councillor Mitten. And that's carried, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, monitoring officer. Agenda item number 7, annual report on social services 2020 to 2021. To receive the report of the chief executive. This is an information only report. Agenda item number 8, to deal with any urgent business or correspondence. I have received some correspondence. The following correspondence is from Councillor Andrew Barry. Will you join me in congratulating and celebrating 2 recent successes of this authority? The Ministry of Finance Armed Forces Covenant Employer Recognition Silver Award was presented to Merthyr Tydfil in recognition of support to our serving reservists, veterans and their families within the armed forces community. The support given by this authority is being recognised at the highest levels within the armed forces, and worthy of mention are obviously Jane Overbury, Lead Armed Forces Officer, Jamie Ireland, our Armed Forces Liaison Officer, and Hannah Brown and Sarah Miles of Human Resources. In addition, Cyfarthfa High School has achieved the Armed Forces Friendly Schools Bronze Award, again a Ministry of Defence Award, through the supporting service children in education Wales, and driving this award were Lyndon Brennan, the head teacher of Cyfarthfa High School, the Armed Forces School Liaison Officer, James Mikarsky, and Julie Atkins, business manager at Cyfarthfa High School. We are extremely proud to have been recognised by these prestigious awards in expressing our pledge, demonstration and advocacy support to our defence and armed forces community and our aligned values to the armed forces family. Councillor Andrew Barry, thank you for that correspondence. Agenda item number 9, to receive communications from their worship the Mayor. I've had none, and I formally declare this meeting closed. Thank you very much for attending, everyone.